Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar, Hoak here, joined by Tom Jacobs. Tom, how are we doing? Are we sick of getting beaten down by the same three players all year long on the DP World Tour? Another back-to-back win that we've had so far this year. This is craziness.
It's one of those ones where, as a person, as a golf fan, you should enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
You should, okay, these three players. I mean, I guess people will choose whether to enjoy Patrick Reed or not, but Schaefer and Casey Jarvis breaking through after years of being kind of expected to, and then winning back-to-back events, winning four of many last events it is exciting, right? For the conveyor belt of South African and DP World Tour talents. From a betting perspective, it just sucks. And to be honest, we did kind of say this was on the cards, right? I think probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, we sort of said this could be, sort of did it from the perspective of I thought Patrick Reed might just dominate and make it boring, but it looks like it's going to be the same few people all season. Things can obviously change with Schaefer and Jarvis. I guess maybe they don't do so well in China and mainland Europe, whatever it might be. But then I just expect Reed to take over. So I don't think it's really going to get that different. I think the same kind of favourites are going to be favourites all year, and which is the same on the PGA Tour, right? But they're also going to win. They're not just going to take up market share. So yeah, it's tough at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because we haven't really, since we've had this run of doing our show like this, there's of course been Penge won multiple times last year. There has been those players, but in succession out of the gates, pretty, especially from full card members, not John Rahm coming in picking off events at 8-1. This is a different beast, and it is interesting because I think we've talked about the lack of depth of the tour, even near the top 10 cards of the year, does probably play its way into this. And point aside, it is great to see the steps of Jarvis and Schaefer, and I'm excited for them to get into majors. I'm excited to see their tests because I guess at some points, I don't want to say I've written off Casey Jarvis, but and even Schaefer, they're young, they're so young in their careers. We've just been so accustomed to them as players, not getting to the expectation yet, that it's very normal that at 23, 24, right? How old between the two of them, right? Jarvis is now 22. Schaefer is now 24, right? Yeah. So going to be 25, well beyond before their golf peaks, there is a situation of elevation, and Jarvis clearly was, very fired up on both wins to really kind of elevate his career. Won the 2 events on the Sunshine Tour to close out last year. So to get in the Masters, to get in the Open, you hope the form can at least make a little noise for them, because I'd be excited to see them on a leaderboard.
Yeah, I think the really exciting thing about it is how impressive, particularly Jarvis, was in his 2 wins, right? To go wire to wire in Kenya for his first one, he's co-leader for the first 3 rounds. That comes with its own tensions, right? And then to win by 3, really impressive, final round 62. And then obviously last week, he's 5 back at the halfway stage, 1 in front after round 3, and then wins it by 3. It's really impressive to do that. And then obviously he had sort of one real chance to kind of win before the year was out in Mauritius, obviously, where he was 2 strokes in front at the halfway, still the co-leader by 54 hole stage, and gets beaten by Schaefer, and obviously Jarvis in the playoff as well. But it's amazing how I actually think Jarvis is, you could argue, ahead of Schaefer, right? In terms of just because obviously he's got 2 years, on him in terms of age, and they've got the same number of wins, and they've kind of done it in the same style. Would probably say the 2 wins that Jarvis has got slightly better than Schaefer's. Not much in it, right? But I would grade out Jarvis just slightly better at the moment, which is tough because it's we're talking about very small discrepancies. But yeah, I'm really impressed by both of them. Is the talking point, and as you said, normally an Open Championship or somewhere where we start to see these guys kind of make noise, be really good. I guess the elephant in the room is the people that are not quite stepping up is the concern.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it's hard pressed to not think like an Angel Ayora is gonna get his card at the end of the day, and find his way, to the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
At this point, you're looking at, I mean, Henny doing his thing, and like, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around him being a PGA Tour player too. Some of these things are, but ripe for the taking for some players. And I think, Callum Hill obviously coming back as a defender at this course kind of transitions well into what we're looking at for this week. So we will have the Joburg Open. Houghton, oh man, I'm gonna get roasted for Houghton, right? Okay,
that was fine. It's not as bad as some of your stuff that you come out with that I have to apologize for, but yeah.
So a course that did play last year's Joburg Open has played historically on the Sunshine Tour for the Joburg, popped over. Decent amount of experience for a lot of the golfers in this field at this course. One of the things that was a little hard, or at least frustrating for someone who likes to, at least back kind of from the long odds perspective, not many of the Sunshine Tour guys played all that well last week. Had high expectations, for Luke Brown, who didn't fall through. The one, Kieran Van Wyck, who I will be riding in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Triple digits, a back nine away, from cashing the each way at 350. I should have probably had that. Conditions came up a little bit, but didn't stop too many people in their tracks where you could have easily. But other than that, there's one guy I think I'm going to bet this week that has some crossover with there, but we're pretty much going back to back with a very similar field at a very similar style of golf course that kind of just not similar style, but like, I don't think Bombers is going to play out here. Callum Hill was the victor, right? Which is an approach game, just kind of clean and accurate. And same field, we did not have any strokes gain stats from like a laser data. European Tour does theirs. So we have a little bit to work off, but it's kind of interesting when you get just a carryover and then the odds kind of move based off of performance. So interesting week that not a ton jumps off, at least at initial look from my end. Yourself?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got kind of 3 picks, but they're, I think, to the point that we've sort of said a couple of times now, and nicely sort of like wrapped up by yourself there. Like, I don't think you need to overthink it. It's very similar to what we've seen in the past few weeks. It's not too dissimilar from any other South African test. I think we sort of say, distance can always help, but it's not really imperative, right? Like, it's not going to play to near to its yardage because of the altitude. So, yeah, I think I would focus on just good ball striking and good form. I think showing up in South Africa last week is impressive, but if you showed up in Kenya, it's not that far away, right? So I suppose you look back to kind of like the final events of November and December in South Africa as well. But yeah, I think that's kind of in front of you, right? Like, why overcomplicate that? Jarvis is just beating Duplessis twice, right? Like, that's what's happened. So it's kind of the same people, turning up, and should just apply the same form. I mean, even to the point where like Laporta's 4th and 2nd, right? Like, the people are just carrying on that form.
And with some of it that does get priced in right now, like I thought Laporta was pretty interesting coming off of the good win. Now at 20s, that's hard pressed there. I think you have to kind of dig into a little bit more of what you and I like to do to kind of maybe at least get some elevation in odds despite the cut. Now, what kind of surprised me, some of the guys in really good form skipped. Nathan Kimsey, Oliver Lindell decided not to play. Both of those guys I thought would line up really well here. Don't really understand why you would, especially as we're looking at a week off next week. I guess we'll hit that too right now. So again, for scheduling purposes, this is going to be the last show Tom and I do until after the Masters. Going to be off at home, paternity leave, new baby coming in a couple weeks. So we'll fire it back up for kind of the lead-in of Masters into PGA Championship before kind of getting an outlook of what summer's going to look like with the growing family. So we'll do this week. But yeah, it's weird. This week you have, and then off week, and then China. So it's kind of surprising if you're already in South Africa, you didn't continue it. But that probably cut a little bit into the mid-range in some. But I wasn't going to pull the trigger of anybody really sub 30 to 1 until we landed on our co-selection right about 40.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was tempted to just go back to the well with Duplessis and just try and get the win, because I was feeling a little bit kind of worried last week that I wasn't going to be on the win after being on the week before. But that would be the only reason. It wouldn't be like I think he's just going to finish second or third every week and get some mutual money. So quite happy to launch into the first selection.
Yeah, let's do it. You can go. You can lead it.
Yeah, so Antoine Rosner, I just think I think it's a classic case of sort of like out of sight, out of mind, right? Like he didn't play very well on the PGA Tour last season. I think that has to be kind of acknowledged. He did okay in certain events, but generally speaking was pretty poor. But one of the things I kind of focus on, and obviously everyone does, right, Sky, including yourself, is just how well they perform when they come back, right? And whether that's, during the PGA Tour season when he finished 12th in France, when he was kind of in middling. Again, like it wasn't terrible form. I mean, he's a top 25 is all season, right, on the PGA Tour, here, there, and everywhere. But it was just, there was no kind of out of mind kind of performances. The best was kind of like a 13th from the CJ Cup. So what you want to look at is where are those kind of high-end finishes. Well, the best one since finishing 4th at the Qatar Masters in February was the 12th in France. So you start to see, okay, well, when he comes back on the DP World Tour, he feels like he can compete. And you look at the kind of 7 starts that he's made since being a full-time member of the DP World Tour again. He finished 46th at the Nedbank, but that was like kind of right at the end of the kind of tough PGA Tour run. 14th for the Alfred Dunhill in South Africa, 10th at the Dubai Invitational, missed a couple of cuts in the Middle East, but then went 9th in Qatar, 14th for the Kenya Open, 24th last week. The kind of like the approach data is always a little bit kind of scruffy, I guess, at this time of year, but 5th, 2nd, and 2nd in approach, if there's anything to be believed there in his last 3 starts. And then when you just look at kind of how he's played and how he's got to there, every one of his recent good performances have promised to be better, right? So the Alfred Dunhill Championship, he finished 14th, but he was 10th after 2 rounds, and obviously he got cut to 54 holes. At the Dubai Invitational, he was 4th after round 1, 5th after round 2, and finished 10th. So again, had a good chance to kick on there. He was 9th after 54 hole in Qatar, and then finished 9th. Didn't kick on from that position. In Kenya, he was inside the top 10 for the first 3 rounds, 8th for the halfway stage, and finished 14th. And then 24th last week in South Africa when he was 13th for the halfway mark. To your point, Sky, I think you have to kind of interpret that at the moment with the odds the way they are. I just think inevitably Rosner's going to come good at some point and be right in the mix. And every time he's been kind of 8th, 10th, and 13th for halfway recently, he's gone backwards. And I just don't think that trend continues for someone of his quality.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm more surprised he hasn't found his way into contention. Like that's... Maybe it is the lack of competitive feel reps, I guess, on the PGA Tour, where he didn't really find himself into the mix. Yeah. Outside of maybe 1 or 2 events, but
just belief as well, right? Like he's probably got in those positions on the PGA Tour, got to like 13th, 14th for halfway, and then finished 25th. And his habit is quite hard to shake, even if you come back onto a tour and you should just kick on, right?
Totally agree. And somebody that I do still think at like. I liked him when he even played on the PGA Tour. Like I did think there was, opportunities of winning type of events there. Like I think that's kind of his ceiling. He's that talented of a golfer, mainly around that approach game. And again, stats are hard to get a full glimpse of, but you do really think that he, was looking at some of the better irons on the entire tour right now, right? And that's to me at least something to write home about. And feel pretty confident overall that he can immediately step right into contention when hopefully he's there on the Sunday, versus kind of backpedaling prior to that.
Yeah, and look, like talking of the approach play, like he was 24th on the PGA Tour last season, the stroke scan approach, right? Like it's like that is how good he is. So we should expect him to be a top 5, top 10 IM player in the tour now. And like par 3s, he was unbelievable last year. Eagles, he was good. Like there was a lot of good if you dig deeper from Rosner last season. It's just the results weren't there, and he had a tough time kind of coping with that.
Yep, for sure. I'm trying to take a look at traditional stats side by side here, just to see last year's Sunshine Tour at the Joburg, how we were looking overall. Let me pull it up quick. Because, like, do you warrant a big discredit for these guys when it comes to distance here versus accuracy?
Okay, talk to me. I think accuracy's fine. Like, I don't focus too much on distance.
Yeah, that's just really, like, I'm trying to see, mainly because down the board a little bit that I get into a little bit. If I look at Callum Hill, 8th in accuracy, there was only one golfer who was top 10 in distance inside the top 15 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it came down to a putting contest. And a lot of these guys made a bunch of putts. Fairways didn't even seem to be all that relevant. But I think you got to just hit greens overall. I mean, this is more talking deep down the board as we get there. I mean, I think the next selection for us at 60 to 1, and I can lead it in, is another player that, like, I'm just thinking of pure trending iron play right now, and that is Rafa Cabrera Bello. I mean, here we are betting Cabrera Bello in 2026, right? I mean, it feels kind of wild, right?
Yeah, I was really excited about it this morning, which is again, there's someone out there that will be listening to this going, "Oh, he really likes all the old players," but the form is really there.
And last week felt like the first week that we've seen relevance from his driver, like in a sense of, like, I mean, he's made 5 cuts in a row, 4 of those 5 top 25, but I think he was just held back from the driver week after week. Last week gained with accuracy, gained with distance, and continued to excel in the iron category, resulting in that T9. Like, that just kind of gets into a spot where you capitalize a little bit more on the week. I mean, I don't have, like, a crazy amount to say in regards to outside of just that type of lead-in form, more than just a week at a time for a golfer who, at his heights, obviously, was incredible. But do you have any more kind of pull on what you're thinking there?
Well, just another one that if you look a little bit closer, like when he was 23rd at the Australian Open at the end of last year, he was 7th at halfway. When he was 34th at the Qatar Masters at the start of this year, he was 10th at halfway. Last week, he improved his position after every round and then eventually did land in that top 10. And as you said, 5 straight made cuts, only one of them outside the top 25, 34th or better in all 5 of them. And that top 10 was his first one since September when he did the Irish Open. I just think I'm not scared of anyone beyond, like, the top 3, right? In terms of Reed, Shaper, and Jarvis. And I know you've got Iora and all those people out there that are extremely talented. Cabrera is not going to be afraid of Iora, right? Like, if they get into a final pairing with each other, he will know there's weaknesses for Iora there. He might kind of say, "Look, here's your hard lesson," almost, right? I do really, and it's not that long ago that he won, right? I know it sounds ridiculous, but, like, 2021's not that long ago in the recent sort of standings of things, and yeah, I just think he's slightly overlooked. I guess not in the market, like they've taken him at kind of 55, 60 to 1. But I think in just a general golfing population at the moment, like, we don't want to look at the 41-year-old Spaniard that's kind of pulling up a few trees with his ball striking and being really steady. But that's where we're at. Like, that is, we've had it. And I sort of think about it in, like, recent years. We've had Rafa Bello do it, we've had Loughton do it, we've had Marcel Siem do it. They've all had little renaissances, right? And one, or, not in Loughton's case, but the other 2, and I think Cabrera Bello is the next one up.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I mean, I think that's just kind of, if we're looking at, we're crossing the name out, like, I think more or less maybe his name factors into a touch of the odds, but also maybe discredits him in some ways too, because of how late he is in the career.
And it's a really interesting point, right? I think he gets a slight decrease because, like if it wasn't Rafa Cabrera and it was Darius Van Driel, right? Then I imagine Van Driel would be 80s and Cabrera Bello's would be 60. But I also think if it was a 22-year-old young up-and-coming golfer, he would be 33.
Right.
That's the point, is they're like, "Oh, Cabrera Bello can't win at 41." Like, he can, and, like, there's a very good chance that's the type of winners that we get. a few times this year at least.
Oh, I totally agree. I guess, he made me feel pretty comfortable from more of a zoom out perspective. I think if you're honing in on another player that kind of fits a little bit of the similar bill, I'm pulling up his odds just to double check how like the difference pretty much would be like it's him. I guess he didn't pop and get the finishes as much as Andy Sullivan did, but like Sullivan's half the price. That feels like a pretty decent comparison between the two right now.
And I'd actually say, like, historically, like, Cabrera Bello is a better player, right? Than Andy Sullivan. I know Sullivan, when he did win, like, it was really impressive, and he's been on a Ryder Cup and all that sort of stuff. But, like, Cabrera Bello was a top 20 player in the world at one point. I know that's, like, by world rankings only, and probably was never truly a top 20 player in the world. But the guy that finished third in the match play, third in, I think it was in Mexico, the WGC, right? And fourth in an Open Championship, 10th in the PGA. Like, I know that's a long time ago, fourth in the Players, like an unbelievable pedigree, right? And I mean, he actually played in that kind of Ryder Cup in 2016, right? In Hazeltine, I think it was probably the same one as Sullivan. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's just really good, and people forget how good he is, and it takes a reminder like this to get back to it.
Yeah, I would be on that side too. I mean, the reason I brought about distance was a conversation of betting Wilco or not here. I think both of us very much were intrigued by him. And that's coming from people that have probably been tougher on him than most throughout his career. Sunday 65 was quite dang good last week. He's made 4 cuts in a row on the Sunshine Tour. He actually went out really hot at the Durban Open and then fell back. So I wasn't all that surprised. Mauritius was a T21. Last year was honestly pretty putrid for him outside of a pop and a win early on in the year on the Challenge Tour, or was it the Challenge? Yeah, last year at this time. But just because you can do something in a unique category to separate yourself on the field, I'm always kind of intrigued at that because it can be so good. I just don't know if it gets it done here versus like, I guess I kind of overlay him with the guy that I bet 2 weeks in a row, and that's Kota Kaneko, in the sense of like, if I'm now getting at what should be, because I do think there was some power that helped last week just because the pure bruteness of how long that course could be. I mean, I thought Burmeister was going to run away with it, honestly, after 18 holes, and him and Grace kind of blew up on the weekend.
It's positive.
But like, do I think poorly of Kota, who was at the halfway point, top 20, right? 19th at the halfway point, and then did it away? I'm not sure what to think of Kaneko right now.
Yeah, I think just bringing the conversation back to Nine Over specifically, like in the end, the reason I went, we talked about this before, come on, like the reason I kind of went away from him, I just think the overall form, like it's not like he's finished, like, a little bit like with Cabrera Bello and Rosner, we've kind of interpreted that they should be going forwards. Nine Over has a history of just going the wrong way, and he's doing it on the Sunshine Tour, right? Like it's not like he's doing it on the DP World Tour. He's kind of playing Sunshine Tour events and going the wrong way. And I just have this impression that he'll maybe have the lowest round of the day and then not really do anything else this week. Kaneko, it's an argument to be made, right? Like I'm not following him anywhere near as closely as you are, I'll be completely honest, but like it makes sense.
Like we're just not getting the odds cut. And that's where like I don't even like mind going back to the exact same Sunshine Tour players. I like I wouldn't fault anyone for just betting Luke Brown again, just from like you fall off, you have one bad week, but maybe, of course, that these guys see a little bit more and feel good about.
I do think that's, sorry, mate, to cut you off, but I do think that's a really good point that if you really liked the Sunshine Tour player last week, probably give them one more chance. Like, because I think we're really quick to jump off. Not me and you, but like in golf betting terms, right? Like I think it's like, okay, well, I really liked him because he was playing the South African event, co-sanctioned, and his form is really good. Oh no, he missed the cut, he's done. There is some players that you're like, okay, look, it's very evidently, I guess like an Alowat, right? Like Alowat was playing as well as he could have done leading into the Kenya Open. He finished a pretty respectable kind of, I think he was inside the top 30, that's probably his, like, we saw whether he could get up there or not. That was kind of his level. But these ones that just missed the cut, we have no idea what they would have done if they got to the weekend. I think you kind of, it's almost a bit of an opportunity knocks again.
Yeah. And I mean, the more I look through just of players, I think that ultimately just need to lead from a ball striking standpoint, where I'm okay passing on Wilco. I mean, I think of, the other golfer that we kind of skipped over at the top was Dan Bradbury. Of like, when I think of like a fairways and greens type of player, like that's Dan Bradbury at his peak. That is when he won this event on debut, back when it was kind of in the fall swing and very kind of split schedule, Sunshine Tour heavy. I don't even mind, actually, now that we even think through that a little bit more with Dan. Like, I guess, like, we all loved him in Kenya and he misses by a mile. Like, you just probably don't get this discount in odds without the recent, absolute terrible performances that he's had the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But like that's where to say, like, the extended point is maybe I'm just not even worried about all that much outside of like trying to find a good fit for the course at their odds, in the sense of at least trying to get one over on the books that have a little bit still in their odds to talk through,
I do think with Bradbury specifically, like, because I looked at him and thought, like, this is one opportunity where, and I was kind of hoping he was going to come out at a reasonably good price, because like, look, a couple of miscuts for Dan Bradbury, I'm not too worried as long as the kind of event suits. No, even if he was 40-1, it was like, look, he's 40-1, Del Rey's 40-1. They're probably not quite as good as Rosner. Maybe Bradbury is, but like Del Rey isn't. And I felt that whole range. Like, I was really intrigued by Todd Clemens.
Yeah, he's the other one that fits that perfect. Bear offs on him and Bradbury both, who could lead a field in ball striking, who could lap a field in ball striking.
But I just thought the prices were, and this is just where we're at, right? And this is why you're going to got to just take the kind of 60-1s of the Cabrera Bellos this day and age, like, where, if you really do like them, go with it. But yeah, I was disappointed by Bradbury's price, but I guess that could look really silly on Sunday. I just think it's one of those ones where, like, like, I know he's obviously won it and finished third of the course, but it's not like an event where we definitively have to be like, you have to lead in irons to win it, right? Like you mentioned about it being like a bit of a putting contest last time.
Yeah.
If it was one where it's like, look, if you don't ball strike the nuts out of it, you won't win, that'd almost lead into it, right? And
I think that would be the fact if it was harder. The fact that you can just score, like, makes, and I think Bradbury went wire to wire that week. But that is where, like, overall, I think if you just looked at some of the better Sunshine Tour players, they're the better ones because of their ball striking. They're like greens and regulation are among the top. Like you bet Van Velzen last week, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So like he's second to Luke Brown on the Sunshine Tour, leading greens and regulation.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Van Velzen's irons were good last week, despite missing the cut on like a per round basis.
Yeah, something looked good in round one, and then just decided to eject. But yeah.
So then you look more at like that, like the one that I'm betting of Sunshine Tour, and I'm jumping around a lot because I think there's just a lot to talk through. But like Hayden Portillas would be the one who stepped up from the form, finished top 10, and he had some lead-in Sunshine Tour form. Now, I mean, if we're talking about like being around for a while, I mean, Hayden Portillas, he's 31, but I feel like we've bet him since he was like 21.
He's been around forever. He's like, and he felt like the Casey Jarvis shaper type player that we're seeing now, right? Porteous, I think
for sure.
A fair thing. Like he won the Joburg, won the Czech Masters, okay, at lower opposition, but a couple of Sunshine Tour wins. He was like playing the Challenge Tour, he beat Brandon Stone, didn't he? So he was the one. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was a bit of a monster hitter back then as well.
Yes, yeah.
And then didn't he just have like really bad injuries or something?
Yeah. I'm rather confident he still played though. Like it's not like he.
Yeah, I don't think he ever
he played through it starting in 2020 and fell off the map. Basically until last year where he had won kind of on it might have even been the Big Easy Tour he was playing, and then steps up. And then this was, he caught my eye at the Alfred Dunhill originally, T14, first time we'd seen him in forever, and then T6 at the South African Open last week after finish runner-up on the Sunshine Tour. So you kind of put those together, and then you still get the odds for him of, I think 200 to 1 is probably the best. Right now, let me see, down to like 150, 160 in a lot of spots. So, but he's somebody that I will jump newly onto for this week. And then it's also tough because we didn't get any stats from the Sunshine guys mainly, because they don't cross over. So I don't know what Luke Brown's green and regulation was last week,
Yeah, it's a lot of blind stuff. And as I said, even that approach play mentioned that I sort of put in, Rosner's case earlier, we don't know that significantly. It's a little bit kind of guesswork from DP Odds, all right. So, it's a lot of guessing this week, which is why I like to just kind of stick to the players that are in good form, and if you like them in the last couple of weeks, you like them again, sort of thing.
So Luke Brown was 30 last year. Probably when he wasn't really having too much of a year was kind of interesting. Clements was top 10. Why don't you go into your last selection that you have on the board? That's, still shorter odds than what we were talking, but deep active.
Yeah, so my final selection is Dylan Frittelli, who has been 12th and 4th at this golf course. He's fairly similar leading form last year. He'd had a 10th in the Dubai Desert Classic, I think it was last year. This time it was a Dubai Invitational. He finished 4th here, opened with 65, closed with a 63. That was after obviously finishing that 12th the year before. So a really good sign that he's had those kind of two strong finishes. And I do just think a little bit like Cabrera Bello, he has just got that elevation of just being a different level player to a lot of these players. I know he has I'm pretty sure chase distance, and that causes him a massive issue, right? But he's won 3 times on the DP World Tour, one of them being as recent as 2024. He's lost 2 playoffs, one of them featuring Harold Varner III in it. And then he's obviously won on the PGA Tour at the John Deere Classic. So all of that factors into the fact that he's just really high pedigree, which most people that listen to this would know. What I don't think everybody knows recently is he's actually playing pretty solidly, right? Alfred Dunhill Championship, he was 10th after 36 holes, finishes 14th. At the Mauritius Open, he was 3rd after round 1, 5th after round 2, and finished 37th. And as I said, he finished 10th at the Dubai Invitational, but he was 2nd going into the final round there. When he was 20th at the Qatar Masters, he was 15th after 54 holes. And then even last week, he opened with a 67, shot a horrible 73 on Friday to kind of, knock himself out of it, but then 69 on Saturday as a nice little bounce back. There's just enough in Dylan Frittelli's game at the moment to return home and play well. I wouldn't be able to call him going to Bahrain like he did last time, winning kind of a little bit out of the blue. But when he's been playing solidly for 3 months now, on and off, and has got a record at the golf course and is playing at home, it seems like a no-brainer to me, someone of his caliber.
Yeah. I had trouble with him a lot because I never feel like I understand his game totally. It's always a little bit different than what it has, but a ton of scoring overall, to your point. The lead-in form from a birdie ability definitely caught my eye last week.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just looking through a few more, just more of down the path of anybody that I thought had a little bit of local type of success. Nikhil Rama has played well here, a guy that I've kind of been a sucker for at times, that I think is really strong. But he's somebody, if I look through, it's hard. And I normally, am just salivating at weeks like this. And I'm not sure, outside of sticking with Kaneko and just kind of building on that, or if I'm willing to separate things and just be okay with betting a bomber, and it would be Wilco. I think there's at least a decent amount of, or you split the difference and you bet both of them and you hope one of the two plays out, kind of the angle here where I'm assuming Wilco last week, if we look at Wilco's numbers, let's see.
He made 21 birdies, by the way, second best in the field.
Wilco did, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me pull up, that's last year's. First in distance last week, 74th in accuracy, 15th in greens and regulation, 3rd in putting, So that is like not a path that is ruled out in this manner. If it does turn into like a putting style contest, like, I don't know. I think, where are we at from an odds perspective with him? 80?
Let's have a look.
Yeah, 75, 80.
75.
Because it's that like next to Hoshino, who popped and was first in irons last week.
Yeah.
Type of argument you really have. I mean, was there anybody from a long shot perspective that you double took at?
Henny Otto.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned him last. He's 500 to 1.
Made the cut
last week. Finished 43rd. He had 17 birdies. Bearing in mind the leader had 24. The best birdie player in the field had 24. Kind of impressed by that, but he's like 100 years old and completely mental and doesn't play very well at this golf course despite being a local. So, yeah, not a huge amount, right? Like, I think to your point, like anyone that was kind of interesting didn't play well last week. That's the difficulty of it. It's not like there's anything you can kind of, apart from Wilco, where you go, okay, well, he did have 21 birdies last week. That's kind of it, I think.
Right. Just double check one more time. Eddie, I looked at Eddie. He had played well at that final Challenge Tour event before he got the spot. He was kind of lights out Sunday too. When nobody was moving, he was running up that leaderboard. Like really, really, and it's just easy to root for Eddie. But I mean, that is the dichotomy of Eddie's course fit versus Wilco's course fit,
I think the trouble, there's a big disparity in people. He's like over 50 to 1 or 80 to 1, right? And I think the 80 to 1 is more realistic and obviously what we would go for. But like, he just has such a glaring weakness.
Yeah.
And it's not like Cabrera Bello where it's like steadily improving. He just has good weeks. Like, and I would never rule him out because I think, as I sort of allude to with everyone, especially like Cabrera Bello and Rosner and everyone, like the upside of him is better than 60% of this field, right? That's a hyperbolic number I'm just making up in my head, but like if you actually broke it down, there's quite a lot more. It just worries me that the 18th is at like the Sunshine Tour event before the 5th last week. It's almost like the 5th kind of come out of the blue. I guess he was 12th after round 1 at Dubai Desert Classic. He had a couple of good rounds in Mauritius, 68 and 69. He played okay for a round in Australia before missing the cut. Like, I guess there's been small signs, but that feels like him where it's like, okay, he's going to shoot 68 and 78 in a week. And hopefully he hangs on and then you can see what he does over the weekend. Like, I don't have a lot of faith in Eddie Pepperell.
I think that's probably fair. The two other long shots I at least like double took on Luis Albertzi. At least steady lead in, finishes T30 last week. 29, like still like decently, or in kind of somewhat of a prime of a career. The other guy, I don't think we ever talked about him because we weren't doing a show at the time. Caribou Moquena, Mokoena. So he came across
I reckon Moquena, by the way. I'm going
Moquena? Caribou Moquena?
I'm going to guess that. In my uneducated.
There's an E before the N. But he was interesting to me. He didn't really have, I can virtually say he hasn't had that much of a career professional, as he doesn't have a single top 5 in his career at all. Like since turning professional, he's 28. But I'm rather confident he's the longest player on the Sunshine Tour, bar Wilco. And then he had like a 60, like late in the year on the Sunshine Tour. And then he came out and like fringe, like contended at the Alfred Dunhill, which I think he was, let me double check here, T23 at the end. but through one round, I think he was top 10. And then through two, he was 10th going into Sunday, which is very impressive, for somebody who I think at those odds was basically, infinite on the board. So he's somebody, if I get him at a distance course where I think things play out, I will be very interested at.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, anyone that hasn't had a top 5 in their career is we feel like we're clutching at straws, right? But like that's where we're at. I think it's like if you want someone off the board, you've got to look into these weeds, and I admire doing it because there's going to be some weird names up there without a doubt, and it's just trying to find them. Like I feel like everyone I kind of follow has gone through the Benjamin Follett Smith thing, right? Like
for sure. I mean, I bet him too.
Yeah. Let's summarize the picks.
Perfect. We'll make sure to give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available across all Mayo Media Network platforms. Super appreciative of Pat and the team. Massive week from Pat last week with Echeverria, Smotherman over on the PGA side, but super appreciative. Like I said, we'll have a gap until after the Masters of this show and then be back for the Masters to PGA Championship run. So super thankful of all you guys. You can find us still Twitter at Skyhook DFS. Tom is still writing up the DP World Tour and has Lost for Words. You can find him at Tom Jacobs 93. So Tom, if you want to review your betting card for us here.
Yes, so I'm going with Antoine Rosner to start. The best I can see is 35. I think you said there might have been a 40, so that's great. Rafa Cabrera Bello, again, 55 to 1 to me. I think you said there potentially a 60, which is also welcome. And then the final pick for me is Dylan Frittelli, who I can see at 75 to 1, and more than happy to take that in this field.
Perfect. I will be joining you on Antoine Rosner. Looks to be 40 to 1, best price. Rafa Cabrera Bello, like anywhere, 60s, 66s, maybe even some 80s out there, depending on where you shop. Wilco Niebuhr, also available, kind of in that same range, 70 to 80. I'll stick with Kota Kaneko. I'm still believing the talent at 80 to 1 as well. And then Hayden Porteous, available 150 to 1 to round out the card for the week. All right, Tom. Appreciate you as always, my friend. We'll catch you in a few weeks. Good luck to everybody, and we'll be talking soon. Take care.
Thanks, Scott.